Well, I like making food that tastes good, and I don't even mind making food that tastes bad. But if I had to choose, I think I'd pick the former. So if you want to know how to make it a little bit better, but maybe not quite as good as it maybe could be, I think that you should listen to what I'm talking about. And if you learn a little something from this, well, I hope it served a purpose, and hey, that's what we're here for. Good, better. Nailed it. Woo!
Hello, folks, and hey, bear. Welcome to the Cook Better podcast. If you don't know what that intro's from, you need to check out the Nate Land podcast. I want to do I said before I was doing some intros from other podcasts that I listen to, and I want you to guess them. But if I just do that and don't even mention that that's what I'm doing every time, then it just seems weird and probably thinking, what in the world are you talking about? But that is from the Nate Land podcast, Nate Bargatze, Dusty Slay, Aaron Weber, and Brian Bates, 4 comedians. One of the podcasts I listen to. I love podcasts. I'm glad that you're here listening to my podcast. But this is one of the podcasts that I like to listen to just while I'm driving and just while I'm doing something, mowing the yard, anything I might be doing that I don't need to have to talk to people. I can put earbuds in and I can just listen. And I assume that's what you're doing with my podcast. And that's great. I don't have a catchphrase. I say hello, welcome to the Cook Better podcast. And maybe it just is the first thing that came out, like I've said before. And it just doesn't seem that catchphrasey. It's just what I say. So I'm still trying to think of something a little more creative than just saying hello. But I can't see you. And saying hello just seems like the right thing to do. But hello, folks, and hey, bear. Welcome to the Cook Better podcast. And this has been a good week. It's been a weird week. Again, I think I say that every time. It's been a different week than the weeks prior, blah, blah, blah. And but this time, my family's been at VBS, Vacation Bible School. If you've never heard of that, it's provided by our church, and so my wife and kids are there. And I am not. I told the person I would volunteer for anything that they needed a hand with, and they said, "We'll let you know." And they don't need my help, which is fine. But it's exciting to see all the kids. It's a lot of fun. They're having a lot of fun doing it. So for the past few days, though, I've been on my own at home, which, is a thing seems like it's a fun thing, or could be like, man, that'd be nice, especially if you're a parent out there, or even if you're married or whatever, to have 3, 4, 5 nights where it's just you, just by yourself. One, I've got a dog, so that's really, and she's only 7 months old. Fern's not that old, so she does still require a lot of attention. But the problem is that I'm also, and maybe other people don't have this issue, but for me, if I'm home by myself when my wife and kids are out doing something, I don't feel comfortable just sitting on the couch and watching TV. I need to show at the end of the night, if anybody were to ask me, what did you do with your free time? I need to be able to say that I was productive. And I don't know why. I wish I could just feel comfortable with not doing anything, just relaxing. That's not the case for me. It may appear that I didn't get a lot done, but I need to get something done because my wife works very hard, and I don't know that she gets that time. And if she's alone for a night or two or whatever, and I'm doing something with the kids, I don't care what she does. I actually hope that she just sits and relaxes. That's fine. We can do whatever, dishes, laundry, all that stuff can be done another day. We don't get many days where you can just relax and do nothing. So take advantage. That's my opinion. If it's my wife, and I don't know, I'm sure my wife, she'd be very gracious to me if I did nothing, but at the same time, it feels like I should do something. So I'm recording a podcast tonight, but even that, when I'm done with this, I got stuff I need to get done. But, I don't know. Maybe you feel the same. I'm sure there's people out there that know what I'm saying. And I'm a person that I like to relax. I've said it before. I like to just sit in a chair. I can sit in a chair, especially if I have a cigar, maybe something to drink. I don't do that very often, and I wanted to get a cigar tonight and just have a cigar and sit out on the deck and just do nothing and just look out and enjoy that. And I can do that. I can shut my brain off and do it, but for whatever reason, well, one, I had to get a podcast recorded, but I just feel like I should be doing something. That's the long of the short of it. There's a guy I used to work with named Bob Johnson, and he's no longer with us. He passed away, but that's something, it's a fun thing when you meet people and you realize, I'm curious what people say. My little phrase I use way too often, other than adjectives that I do on here, phenomenal, fantastic, whatever other ones I'm not aware of might be. But the long of the short of it was what Bob Johnson would say, and I'll forever remember him for that. Long of the short of it is that I feel like I need to be doing something. I can't just sit and do nothing unless everybody else in the house is here and we're all sitting and doing nothing. Then I feel all right with that. But I did pretty good this week. I think I did. I think I did as far as food is concerned, making food. I didn't, I don't know. I think compared to the last couple of weeks, at the very least, I did well in preparing something at home, not as much ordering in. But so that being said, let's get into it.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, if I can direct your attention to the meals from last week.
I think I did pretty good. I think compared to weeks prior, like I said, I did pretty good. I made food at home, minimal ordering out. Healthy? Yeah. I think the more I cook, for my family, when I cook, the more decadent and just flavorful I want to make the food. And I need to transition my efforts to pivot to a healthier option in that same, but still, I know there are things out there. There's some great tasting salad, but that's not where I go. I mean, that's not even my final or 10th choice. I need to do that. That's the one area that I think I need to, or definitely I know I need to improve on. I can make very flavorful, very good tasting food that's using good ingredients and healthy ingredients. The trick is I want to make things that taste like they came from a restaurant, a good restaurant. And what do restaurants do with a lot of what do they do? They use a ton of butter. And I use a lot of butter. I use a lot of cream. I use all that stuff. And so healthy, no. Very flavorful, yes. Made at home, yes. There's boxes being checked, not healthy. So, but compared to what? I mean, how do we, that's the thing that I think, when we look at what we're cooking, there's a comparison that can be made and maybe should be made. We always have a bar that is ever raising, that we can shoot for, a goal that we can shoot for. But I think it's also good, at least this is how I justify things. I look at the quality of what I'm making and compare it to what I would be buying as a replacement if I was not cooking at home. And honestly, that's kind of what this entire podcast is about. I want to be better. I said before, taking out of a box and just heating it up, that's good. At least you're making something or doing something at home to try to put something on your dinner table for your family. But I want to take that and just be a little elevated, a little better than that. And if that's where you are at, then fine. That's, it's better than eating out or ordering in every single night and getting fast food and processed food and whatever. Last week, I talked about some of the things that I made. That half of what I made last episode, was along those lines. Is good because we were eating at home and we still sat at the dinner table as a family and had dinner together, which is always my number one goal, is having dinner together. But this week, I think I did a little bit better. Room to improve, as always. But let's get into it. So I had said last episode, that we were in the Grand Canyon area. We were in Arizona. We stayed at the Wallapai tribe on the reservation in a lodge there, and we went whitewater rafting. That was awesome. That was great. But I had mentioned that we had a fry bread taco when we were there. And it was so good. And just something, ingredients. The only thing that I wasn't super familiar with was the fry bread itself. Taco ingredients, I didn't think it was seasoned necessarily the way I would like it seasoned. Had not a lot of flavor, just kind of beef. And my son had wanted to try to make it at home. My daughter was, the week after we got back, last week, was at camp all week. So I said that when she gets back, we'll make it. And that's what we did. So we made fried bread tacos. Now, in all honesty, my son has been bugging me. We went on YouTube, found a recipe, just because I like seeing the visual a little bit. And he wrote it down on a piece of paper and kept asking me almost every day, can we make the fry bread? Can we make the fry bread? Can we make the fry bread? And I said, when your sister gets back, we'll make it and we'll have it for dinner. That way she can have some too, because she wanted it. She wanted the same thing. And would you believe it? When it came time to make the fry bread, I tried multiple times to get him to help me make the dough, and he was not interested. No, that's okay. You can do it, sometimes. But I wanted to do it too, so I did do that. And this was a interesting process. We're up in Michigan. I'm up in Michigan. And it's been very humid, as it has hot and humid this last week. And we're talking above 90, whatever the dew point, I don't really even look. Doesn't matter to me what the numbers are. I go outside and it's hot. But I know it was above 90, very high dew point, very humid. And so if you've made dough before, and if you haven't, then this is a heads up, that when it's really humid out and really hot out, even though you're inside your house in a conditioned space, in theory, and it definitely is when you walk, it feels so good walking in from the outdoors if you have air conditioning, as I do. But the dough recipe called for a certain amount of flour, certain amount of milk or water, and it was a very simple dough recipe, but I put those together, and the dough would just not come together. It was a sticky mess. I had to add a lot of extra flour in order to get the dough to form a ball, and I just didn't do what the recipe called for. It just wasn't enough flour. I couldn't get it to come together, and that was due to the humidity in the air and everything. And I've always heard that's a possibility, that an issue you can run in when you make a bread of any kind or any kind of dough. I've never experienced it like I did that night. And granted, I don't make breads all the time, but this definitely opened my eyes to, yep, I get what you're talking about now when you say that it varies. So I say all that because I made the dough. I had to add a lot of extra flour just to get it to come together and do what it's kind of supposed to do. I kneaded it together, folded over, knead the dough. Great. Let it rest, and then made it. Now, when you make a fry bread, it was just a Dutch oven that I used. If you have a deep fryer that's big enough, like a turkey fryer, that would work as well. I just used a Dutch oven because I say deep fry, but really that dough just kind of falls into the oil and it sits on top as it's frying. You flip it over. It only takes about 30, 40 seconds per side at 350. Get the oil up to about 350 or so. And so I only had about an inch or so of oil in the bottom of the Dutch oven. And I like that on a stove, and I've got a gas stove, so there's an open flame. I like something like that where it's a low amount or a little oil. That way, I'm just not worried about if you're fully deep frying something where it has to submerge. I had plenty of room between the oil and the top of the pan where I don't have to worry about boil over, oil spilling over the sides and causing a grease fire. Be careful about that if you're doing it on your own at home. Dutch oven's great because I'm not making huge pieces of fry bread. You make the dough and then you cut it into even sections and flatten it out into about 8-inch circles roughly. Once it's flattened out and rolled out to the 8-inch circle or so, then you can take it and drop it in the oil. Like I said, it's 30 to 40 some seconds per side. Whatever it takes to get browning on the one side, flip it over, another additional 30, 40 seconds. And if you've ever had at the fair like an elephant ear or something like that, this is exactly what that is. If you put some brown sugar some cinnamon and sugar on there, it's an elephant ear. So that's what it is. But you don't put any seasoning on the dough. Take it out, put it on a paper towel to kind of let some of that oil drain off on a plate with a paper towel, and then put your taco toppings on. I did the ground beef, and I've done it the way I have done it quite often in the recent past. And that is to put the beef in. I put tomato paste, taco seasonings, cumin, paprika, chili powder, garlic powder, salt, black pepper, all these things that I'm putting in. But I've got the tomato paste. I still have a little bit of that beef base. I did add some more of that to it too. You can put some onion. I believe I did saute a little bit of onion along with it. If you hear a rolling around sound behind me, that's my dog who's got a bone bouncing across the kitchen floor. I'm sorry. If you don't hear it, then this makes things weird. I can't imagine you can't hear that, though. Fern, must you do it right below my feet? Yeah, she don't care. She don't care. Anyway, toppings, beef, tomato, lettuce, iceberg lettuce, sour cream, cheddar cheese. Really good. Turned out good. All that humidity and that added flour caused the dough to be a little bit dense. It still tasted great. And I can recognize that in my family's, and it was really good. It wasn't like it tasted bad, but it just wasn't as airy and as fluffy as it would be on a normal day when you make it. When you have to add that extra flour, obviously that's extra dry ingredient. It just was more dense. But It's still puffed up and took the same shape. Everything looked the same as it would have had it not been as dense or whatever. So that was day number one. Then day number two, believe it or not, I had extra taco ingredients left over. That's one thing that I don't like about tacos. If you make them like an American style taco anyway, where you use iceberg lettuce and tomato and everything. A Mexican style, you've just got cilantro and onion. We did have fresh cilantro with it too. But you don't have a whole I don't buy pre-shredded lettuce, iceberg lettuce. I buy a head of lettuce. And then I always end up with extra because you're not eating an entire, even with 4 people, we're not eating an entire head of lettuce. Now, can you take that and make it into a salad for lunch or something? Take that leftover lettuce? Absolutely. My daughter loves just eating plain lettuce. She loves it. And I don't know why she eats it like chips. But even so, I still had extra ingredients. I had plenty of extra meat. 1 pound for 4 people never looks like enough. And I know that in tacos, you can, that there's, you're not using a ton of meat. And so, but I had almost 2 pounds of beef that I cooked up. Like I said, long of the short of it is, I had extra taco ingredients. So the next night, I wanted to cook that up. And I didn't want to just make the same thing. One, the fry bread, I didn't want to make the dough and do all that work. And just basic stuff I had wonton shells in my refrigerator. I usually have either egg roll wrappers or like the wonton wrappers in the refrigerator just to have at hand. Because I have found that wonton wrappers and egg roll wrappers are fantastic for leftovers. I'm not a huge leftovers person. I can microwave and do the things at work to kind of reheat and everything. I'm bad at it, okay? I'm just not good. Maybe some people would say it's lazy. I don't know. But the wonton and the egg roll wrappers are great because I've made like Philly cheesesteak egg rolls or taco egg rolls or whatever. Just wrapping them up, deep frying them. Like I said, I keep aiming to make like restaurant stuff, not healthy stuff. Anything deep fried is not going to be good. I don't have an air fryer. I kind of refuse to get one. I don't know why, because I should get one for these situations. Air frying would probably be better than deep frying when I go into these type of things. But anyway, so that's something that I have usually on hand. Excuse me. And so I thought I'm going to make wonton taco bites. And so I took a muffin tin and I sprayed it with cooking spray. And then I put a wonton wrapper. A wonton wrapper is like 4 inches by 4 inches or something like that. Push it down into a normal muffin tin, and every hole in the muffin tin, put a wonton wrapper in there. Then I filled it with taco meat, and just a spoonful of taco meat in each one, a little bit of shredded cheddar that I shredded myself, dumped it in on top of that. Then I took another wonton wrapper and put that on top of that meat and cheese mixture, pushed down. Once I had all of those covered, I then put a little more cheddar cheese on top. That's good. Put them in the oven at whatever temperature. I don't think it was that hot, to be honest. It was probably around 350, 375. And put it in there for like 10, 12 minutes, and they were done just till the edges get golden. Pull it out. Then I can put sour cream and a little bit of lettuce and any of the onion, cilantro, any of your normal taco toppings that you would do. Then you put that on top. And I did it, I put them on the table, and then individually we all put what we wanted on it. I didn't dress them up before serving because everybody at my house likes something different. I like hot sauce. I like jalapeno. And I like salsa, whatever. Kids don't necessarily want that. So it was great way to use up the leftovers and just to utilize that. And we used that, burned up the last of what I had left. And it was good because the wonton wrappers I'd had in my fridge for quite a while. I took them out, and now I got to use them. But those things will last forever. I don't look in the back. I don't know why they last forever, but they do. Probably not great that they do, but they do. So that was a good way to utilize some leftover taco food. Yeah, taco food. That works. Why not? Next night, nothing good or homemade in this situation. Macaroni and cheese, SpaghettiOs, hot dogs. This was the night I ate a little bit. I love macaroni and cheese. And so I had some of that, but I had been smoking. I smoked 4 pork butts, 10 pounds each in my smoker, and those were going all day. So, of course, about 8 o'clock, everything's done. It's rested. I got to try some of that, it was really good. I brined it the night before and made the pork. That doesn't matter. That's not really what we had for dinner. It was kind of a quick, here's dinner type of a situation. So we did that. Then the next night, I did, it was one of those, like I said, my wife and kids have been gone at VBS. So I was hungry. I'm home by myself. My instinct is to go out and buy a whole pizza and eat that on my own, which even at this very moment sounds like a great decision. Something I maybe should do now. I'm not going to, but I was home and I made tuna cakes. Now that, if you were even to ask me, does not sound appetizing. But I looked at my pantry. What do I have? I've got cans of tuna fish. I don't want just a plain tuna fish sandwich. And so I'm going to make these tuna cakes. I was thinking along the lines of crab cakes. And that's really what they kind of were with flake tuna. I mean, we're talking the canned tuna. Was it chicken of the sea type of whatever. And this was just taking the tuna, draining all the water. I buy the water, tuna and water, not tuna and oil. That's what I get. And you've got your tuna, drain all the water out, then take an egg and kind of blend that. Not blend it, but use a fork and beat it like you would for a scrambled egg. Pour it in with the tuna fish, and then I used a bunch of panko, dump some panko in there, almost like you're making a meatball, because in essence, that's really what you're doing. You do the same thing if you were making a meatball out of beef or lamb or chicken. And it's that same principle. Put herbs in there. I had some parsley, some garlic, some onion. I had some red onion that I put in there. And then I just took a big spoonful and shaped them, and then took it and shaped it into patties in my hand, put it on a plate, and I put them in the freezer because I knew I was going to be making them pretty quick. So I just threw them in the freezer, and then 5 minutes later took them out, and it just helps hold the shape a little bit better. And took out the cast iron pan, put some butter in there, and then fried them both sides till they were golden brown. They were good. I mean, it tastes like tuna fish. I honestly do like I think everybody likes to hate on tuna fish, and I could be totally off base there, but there's not a lot of people that will admit they like it. I do like the flavor of tuna fish, even the stuff in the can. I love a tuna sandwich. Oh, I put celery seed in as well with that mixture. Celery seed is something that a lot of pasta salads, like a tuna salad or even if you're just making tuna fish to put on a sandwich, is missing. There's something in that celery seed. I like a raw celery cut up into small chunks that gives a little crunch, but the flavor that it gives in the celery seed is really good and helps out a lot with something like that. So that was that meal. It was just those tuna cakes, and I didn't really have any sides. I'm just feeding myself, and I just kind of pulling stuff out. The next day, I had nothing. Literally did not eat dinner, and I was hungry when I went to bed. But throughout the night, I was working on stuff in the yard, doing things around the house, just busy, and I was by myself. I'm not making dinner. Okay, so that was a whole lot of nothing. And then the following night, I said last week, the whole episode last week was on stuffed chicken breast. What I made this week, yesterday night, was that elevated. I had talked about doing a Italian style with some pesto and some mozzarella and then some sort of marinara rolled in panko. That is going to happen. I've got the ingredients for it at my house. I picked them up yesterday, but I also got what I have made for last night's dinner, and this was so good. I think it was even better than the stuffed chicken that I made last week, which is blowing my mind because 2 weeks in a row to get an elevated meal or a meal that I think is even better than the last is pretty good for me. And this was a mushroom stuffed chicken breast rolled in pancetta with green beans, and I made a roasted cauliflower puree. That sounds, even for me, or not even for me, like I'm anybody special. But that sounds like something real fancy. And it was. And I made it by myself, and I was the only one home. I did bring a plate over to the neighbor who absolutely loved it. Granted, he was standing right in front of me, so he could just been, what are you going to say when someone gives you something right in front of him? Anyway, I know he wasn't lying because I tasted it. And this was just taking, I will try to keep it short, but take a chicken breast and butterfly it and pound it out. Get it as flat as you possibly can get it. That's the base. That's what we're using for the base. Meanwhile, while I was doing that, I had broke up some cauliflower. I had some butter in a pan, some shallots, and was sweating down the shallots. And then I put the cauliflower in. And cauliflower, I didn't really realize it has a ton of moisture in there. And it took like 40 minutes to roast this cauliflower. It was in a Dutch oven. And I just had it on that pan on a medium-low heat and just let it go till it was browned and all that moisture had leaked out. Once that happened, I poured some heavy cream in, and then I did. So I kind of followed a recipe from Fallow, which is on YouTube. They're a restaurant in England. That's where I got the idea from. They used a cognac vinegar, and as soon as you say cognac, I know it's going to be expensive. And they just took a splash of it and put it in that cauliflower puree mixture. I'm curious what that flavor difference is, but I didn't have that. I thought about using a red wine or a apple cider vinegar or a just white distilled vinegar. Instead of the vinegar route, I took a little lemon juice. It's another acid, and just did a splash. I mean, we're literally talking a splash. So a little splash of lemon juice in there, mix it up in the blender, then push it through a sieve. And now you've got a really clear puree. I did add some fresh shredded Parmesan cheese that I got a block, shredded that. Again, anything shredded that you buy, you think, it's better because it's shredded. It still has that cellulose in it, anti-caking agent. So I buy the block and shredded some of that in there. And that cauliflower puree, I will be making many times. And you can make it like the day before or even 2 days before probably. I have not tasted something that was that flavorful and just hard to describe, but so good. And so I made that puree, and I also had my mushroom filling. I had some cremini mushrooms, I believe, and some shiitake mushrooms. You can just use white, whatever, button mushroom or whatever. That's usually what I buy, just the white mushrooms, whatever those are. And you could definitely do that. And it would honestly probably taste just as good. I don't know that you can taste the difference of a shiitake mushroom. I think it just looks better on a menu when you've got shiitake and cremini and different mushrooms in a mixture. White mushrooms would taste just as good. Put that in with a bunch of butter. Again, I did a little bit of shallot in too with the mushrooms, and just put those in a pan and let them go on a medium-low heat again until most of that moisture is evaporated. I did throw a tablespoon of butter at the very end in with the mushrooms and more fresh Parmesan cheese just to act as a binder, that Parmesan, right at the very end. Once that was done, I spread that over my pounded out chicken. Then I took that chicken and I rolled it. Starting at one end, I rolled it up as tight as I could. And then I took that rolled chicken stuffed with mushroom and set that on 3 pieces of prosciutto. And then rolled that and wrapped that whole rolled thing in saran wrap or clear plastic wrap. And so I pulled it real tight and got it really pinched. And if you've ever used prosciutto, it's very fatty, and it honestly is very sticky. I don't know that I needed to do the plastic wrap, but I thought that would really hold and make a cylinder shape and just help keep it all together. So I did that, and I put it in the refrigerator for about 10 to 15 minutes. Then I pulled it out, put it in a pan that had more butter. Like I said, butter's a very heavy theme here, as you can tell. And put it in the oven at 425, and it took about 24 minutes or so. Take it out, temperature check it, make sure it reaches 160. Take it out, and then I plated it, put the puree. I did the fancy chefy thing and scooped some of the puree using the back of a spoon onto the plate, and then smeared it. I cut up in that wheel of chicken, that cylinder with the prosciutto. Just now, almost it like browns. It's almost like bacon kind of, but it's not as salty. But just this pork on the outside, and then squeeze some dollops of that puree. And then sprinkled over the top of all of it. I had green beans and then sprinkled fresh parsley. Beautiful presentation, but the flavor was even better. I am so impressed with that. And I'll make it again. It honestly, though, took me 2 hours to make that meal. And if I did it again, I think what I would do is to make the cauliflower puree ahead of time. And you could even make the mushrooms stuffing mix ahead of time, like the day before too. Now, granted, you still got 30, 40 minutes you're spending in the kitchen the day before. You're just not doing it. It's more one of those things where maybe if something's in the oven that's going to take 20 minutes to warm up for a meal that I'm making, then I might just add the mushrooms and get those going if I know I'm doing this meal the next day. But I'll be making it again, no doubt. And I can't say it enough. I mean, apparently stuffing chicken with things is the way to go. It's the best tasting meals I've had ever, and I've had them both in the last 2 weeks. So give it a try. So good. There are so many recipes on YouTube. If my description, I know I don't give quantities. Again, just get these flavors, put them together. They're gonna be good. And but if you need an actual recipe, look it up. You have pictures. I understand this is an audio only medium, and it's not the easiest. I'm not giving you necessarily step-by-step direction, but give it a try. Let me know how it goes, because I'd love to I am still going to do that Italian style, so to speak, air quotes there, stuffed chicken. I think I'm going to be doing that this week when the rest of the family's home with me. But 10 out of 10 on that one. I honestly don't know how it could get better. The green, maybe one of the sides being a little bit different with a green bean or something would be the only thing. I could maybe do Brussels sprouts or asparagus or something like that. But that doesn't change a whole lot. The green beans were great. So, all right. That's the last week. Like I said, I think I did a little bit better this past week, at least with what I actually had to put a little effort in. and not pull it out of a box. But wherever you're at, where you're at and how you're doing, I'm just saying what I've been doing just as a way to hold myself accountable more than anything. But I think it's time to get into it. This is, episode number 26. And I think it would be helpful for me. I know it would be helpful for me, for you guys to comment on what you would like me to discuss. But, we're at episode 26. I'm always looking for topics, but this is one that I kind of thought from the beginning might be an interesting thing. Again, I'm a home cook. I think you all know that. And I don't know that I need to say that every time, but I feel like I need to remind people that I'm not a professional out here. And I think I say that just because I don't know if like everything I'm doing is correct techniques. And actually I say that I know that what I'm doing is not all correct techniques. I think I've learned a lot of correct ways to do things, and I'm continuing to learn, and I plan on doing that the rest of my life. What's the point? I don't think there's anything in my life that I've peaked at. Actually, I know that's not the case with anything. Cooking is another one of those things. And so I'm a home cook. So there are going to be a lot of things that I don't have necessarily 100% right. And I will try to be honest with things like that. If I realize that I've been doing something wrong, and again, I don't know that anything's necessarily wrong. It just is maybe not the best way or the most correct way. And if I'm serving some people at a restaurant, there's standards there that you're not. If you want to be a restaurateur and run a business, then there's certain ways you maybe have to do things. I'm not held to those same standards. I would like to find an elevated standard that I can reach for, and to do things in a way. But I say that because we're going to talk about what I would consider to be pantry staples. And these are things that I try to always have on hand. And that these items or the things in my pantry or your cupboard or whatever you have that you put things in, I'm talking about stuff that you always have on hand. And if it runs out, it's on the list, you're getting more next time. There are a lot of things that I don't, I don't know, bacon or something. I don't always have bacon in my refrigerator. I don't always need bacon. I don't need that every week. There are a few things like that. Actually, most things are that way. But I like to have certain things so that, and this is something if you're new to cooking or you're just kind of getting into it or whatever, you're not going to have everything. You're going to look at a recipe and go, man, this is expensive. I've got to buy, like if I'm making rice, I've talked in the very first episode, I talked about how I like doing like a Middle Eastern rice, and that takes oil. That takes cinnamon, clove, turmeric, onion, rice itself. And there are a lot of other salt, all these things. If you don't have cinnamon and clove and salt and turmeric and coriander seed or cardamom or whatever, and you got to go out and buy all that, then that one recipe is going to be, that recipe is going to be very costly. That's going to be an expensive bowl of rice, no doubt. And so that's the kind of thing where, and spices and herbs are one of those things where I think that a great, my biggest suggestion to people would be to get everything you can, as much as you can, from Dollar General and or wherever. I don't know if where you live if that doesn't make any sense. Like a cheap store or not the most expensive ingredient. for herbs and spices. Dollar General sells a lot of these things for $1. And again, if you have to buy 8 seasonings for one dish, that one thing might be a lot in the beginning, but then you have this thing left over that you're never going to use an entire bottle of anything for a recipe for just you and your family of any size. You're not going to. So buying those things cheaply, and then after you have them, and then when you can afford it, when it makes sense, then you can start to get better as far as quality of ingredient, I suppose, where you can get some cinnamon sticks that you can use for making a horchata or using for something else, put that in. I've done cinnamon sticks, just kind of broke them in half and put them in with the rice along with some ground cinnamon, so that I think that it adds more flavor. I don't know if it really does, but just putting a raw cinnamon or a cinnamon stick in something, or whatever it might be, buying a more, there's organic herbs and stuff. And I haven't done any research on it to see if that really is that much different, but there's, then you can, because you go into any store, at least in the United States, you go into a grocery store and you can buy a bottle, a little container of like dried cilantro at Dollar General or someplace cheap, any grocery store for like $1.50 or less for this little bottle. And then right above that, you can see the McCormick or the whatever it is, the same size bottle, and it's like $6.50. And if you were to pour them out and do a side-by-side comparison or cook with them and do a side-by-side comparison, I would argue that, especially as a new cook, and even for myself, I don't think I'd be able to tell the difference. So pick and choose what you spend a lot of money on. And I'm not going to go into all of the spices and the herbs, dried herbs and everything that I have in my pantry. Obviously, salt and pepper you have on hand for anything. Paprika. Now I'm just listing all the things I said I wasn't going to list. But there are a lot of crossover spices and herbs. Middle Eastern food uses a lot of the same things that Mexican food uses. The difference is that Middle Eastern tends to add a lot of what I would consider more sweet ingredients, and that's or spices, and that's maybe because I don't know a better way to describe it. I don't know if that's accurate, but Middle Eastern has, like I said, cinnamon, clove, nutmeg is something that you're going to use. I would strongly suggest getting nutmeg, because if you're making a bechamel, which is one of the mother sauces, a base sauce that you can use for many different applications, that takes nutmeg. Now you can make it and not have the nutmeg in there, and what's that going to? You're just missing a little touch of flavor that are most people going to pick up on it? No, but when you taste it at a good restaurant or something, a bechamel or a sauce, and then you say, mine doesn't quite. There's something in this sauce that I'm not getting when I make it at home. In that case, maybe it's just that little bit of nutmeg or whatever. So I would encourage you, especially if you're a younger person, just invest what makes sense. And then you have birthdays, you have Christmas, and so ask for maybe some of these. Saffron is something I've never cooked with. I said before, I say saffron, and that's still true. I'm not asking for somebody to buy me saffron, but it's something I've always wanted to try, but it's very expensive. A few little saffron sprigs or needles or whatever it is, it's like $15 for just a small, and that's like dirt cheap. And so I've never tried anything with saffron. I have no idea what the flavor profile is. There will be a day when I will try it. White pepper, that's something I had mentioned. My mom bought me a bottle after she heard the podcast, which was really nice. And I've used it, and it does have a different flavor than black pepper. But there are things that is worth spending the money on, and there are things that's like there's needs and wants, right? Just like anything else. I've got a lot of wants. We all do. But is need there? I mean, I think a lot of the things we have and think are needs aren't even needs. I know that's the case for me. So do what makes sense for you, especially when you're first starting off. It doesn't have to be super expensive. You can make a pasta sauce with just a little bit of oregano and salt and pepper, and then maybe you have to buy a little garlic, or you can make one that has garlic and basil and oregano and obviously salt and pepper, and you can just go thyme and go above and beyond, and really, but that's when you're learning, keep it simple. So what do I have in my pantry? I have a ton of things in my pantry. And I'm trying, and I might go into some things on accident that are things that we buy that are just things we have because we know we're going to eat them throughout the week. Some types of cereal, for instance. That's not cooking. That's a box of cereal. Oatmeal. That's something that can be kind of a good thing to have on hand if you do have to cook that. And I've done overnight oats where you'll have oatmeal and you can put it in any kind of container, like a mason jar or a jelly jar or whatever, or in a thermos, and then you just put it in the oats in cold and put a little milk in there, and then add some blueberries or strawberries or honey, maybe a little peanut butter, and just put them in the refrigerator overnight, as the name suggests, overnight oats, and then you take them out and have them cold the next day, or I suppose you could heat them up. But that's a great thing to have also could make a meal in a pinch if you didn't really know what you were going to do. There's things like pancake mixes. Again, I'd rather make the pancake mix using flour and baking powder. I don't even remember right now if it's baking powder, baking soda, salt, whatever, a little vanilla. I'd rather myself make it than buy a box mix. That being said, we have a box pancake mix in our pantry because sometimes that's easier. I know that's the reason we use, or excuse we use, for a lot of things than just mixing and grabbing 4 or 5 different things out of the pantry. We just have to grab the box. So there's stuff like that chips, the things, but this is nothing, whatever your personal tastes are. Obviously, you're going to try to keep some of it on hand for when you're hungry. My most difficult pantry items are the things for snacks, because meals I can do. Snacks that aren't processed or aren't garbage are much harder to keep on hand. But obviously, flour. I always have flour. I have multiple types of flour. All-purpose flour is the big one, and that's because you can use it for bread doughs. You put it in cookies, and you can or pancake mix that you can make from it. There's just so many things that if I can't think of what I'm going to do or what I'm going to make, I've got flour. And if I also involved in that is not only trying to think of a meal to make, but if I'm thinking of a snack to make, if I want to make cookies, you need flour. If you want to make any type of a quick bread, you're going to need flour. So flour, and really a lot of those baking basics I have. Now, I've got bread flour, I've got cake flour, I've got wheat flour, and I have all-purpose flour. I think I have 4 or 5 different types of flour. All-purpose is by far the one I use the most. If I want to make soft pretzels, which are really good, and I'll have to go over that sometime, you need all-purpose flour. So flour is definitely in there. And then along the bread lines, I have instant yeast. I had active dry yeast. You can get that. You can get different things. But a lot of recipes will just say, just use the instant yeast, and it doesn't go bad quite as easy. I might be putting my foot in my mouth there. I don't know if that's true, but instant yeast is something that I always have on hand. And I've got that with the flour, along with baking soda and baking powder and cream of tartar. These are all things that I always have. And that's because, again, breads, cookies, any type of dough, you're going to need those basic ingredients. Now, that fry bread I made earlier this week, there's no yeast in that. It's not a yeast bread. It's just salt and baking powder and flour. That's pretty much it. And then it gets fried. So it's good to get those. And those things, these are things that you can get from a bulk store, a Costco, a Sam's Club, or even at a Walmart or wherever you buy it. Typically, you can get them in a big bag. And that's because they're used in so many different things that now you've got it. Now I bought rice is another thing that I always have on hand. It's a great side dish is what I guess I call it, but it's a starch, and it's just something that I can always have with whatever protein I've got. And I've recently been buying a big 25-pound bag. It is a big bag. It's cheaper if you're at a grocery store in the United States and you look at a label where it says the price for whatever you're buying. It says then, like right below that in small numbers, it says per ounce. So for me, I think, well, I'm going to eat this amount eventually anyway. If I can afford to buy the bigger bag now, that will save me money in the long run. There have been days where we just couldn't afford to buy the big bag because right now we don't have the money to do that. And I get that. So if you got to buy a small bag of any of these things, flour, because it does add up when you're initially purchasing it. It is weird though that once you do that the one time, some things you go through faster than others, so you're not typically buying them all in bulk at the same time. Again, these make it seems like a terrible Christmas gift or a birthday gift, but I mean, if we're asking for, I'd rather get that kind of stuff. Honestly, the toys and stuff, whatever. I like getting food stuff, but I'm a little weird that way, I suppose. But a great option if finances are an issue. I understand there's a lot of people in that place, and that's maybe a way to get some of that. And now you're set for my birthday. Can you give me a bag of flour and baking soda and baking powder and a big bottle of vanilla extract? Because then I can make cookies for months without having to buy anything. That'd be great. Along those lines, chocolate chips. I don't make cookies as much as it would seem when I say that, like I do, but we always have chocolate chips, a couple different kind, milk chocolate. I like dark chocolate personally myself, so I'll have milk chocolate and dark chocolate. When we run out of any of those, we will replenish that. While we're on baking, granulated sugar, brown sugar, and confectioner's sugar or powdered sugar is also things that I get that I always have on hand because I can make any dessert having any of that sugar. And there are, sometimes if a sauce, every once in a while I'll make a pasta sauce and I'll add some sugar to it. So it's granulated white sugar for that. So sugars are a thing. And I have tons of seasonings. I love a Creole seasoning and granulated garlic, like I said. Now I'm just listing spices again, but that I buy in the bulk size. Granulated garlic is something that I use quite often. If I pretty much use that anytime I cook a protein, I'm going to save a lot of money by buying the big bottle and buying it once every 8 months or whatever it is, once a year, instead of buying one every few weeks or once a month of the smaller bottles. So that, and again, along those same lines, you have oils, a lot of different types of oils. And if you can just do a just a neutral oil, like a vegetable oil, and that's going to get you by for most things. You can coat sounds kind of goofy, but you can coat your vegetables, like when I make Brussels sprouts or asparagus or whatever, I can do that in vegetable oil. It's not going to be quite the same flavor as if I do it in olive oil, but you can do that because vegetable oil is very neutral. Canola oil is very neutral. And so these things also have different smoke points. The vegetable and canola are a very high smoke point. There's something you can use for shallow frying, like I made that fry bread. Vegetable or canola oil will work for that. Olive oils, and I don't know that a lot of people spend a lot of money on a good vegetable oil. I don't even know what a good vegetable oil would be. I'm sure there is something out there. I don't shop at Erewhon or whatever. I'm sure they have a $50 vegetable oil. But just get a cheaper vegetable oil. And even with olive oil, this is the one that I've been I've wanted to have a palette for olive oil for a while. And I don't know that actually, if I don't know, that means I don't. I don't have the palette for that. And I would love to appreciate a good olive oil. I actually buy a middle-of-the-road olive oil whenever I get like an extra virgin olive oil. And this is going to be good for salad dressings, or if you're making a vinaigrette, or if you're doing... I know extra virgin is technically a finishing oil. At least a lot of that's what it says. I will cook the same. I'll do Brussels sprouts, asparagus, and oil, salt and pepper. I'll do that in extra virgin olive oil. I'll get Crisco. I've gotten Crisco for which I think is just basically a vegetable oil that's missing something because it kind of solidifies when it gets cooler, and then when it heats up, whatever. But all these oils, this is something, again, you can buy the cheaper thing. And if you can't tell the difference, then I don't know. This is something I struggle with. I want to be able to say to really nobody, or maybe you, but I don't tell you what brand olive oil I buy necessarily. I just want to, it makes us feel better. I don't know. It's a consumeristic mindset where if it's more expensive, it's better. And even if I can't tell the difference, I just need the name brand, whatever it might be. And so I struggle with that. But I also want to try to, there is a difference, so I want to try to figure it out. But oils and vinegars, too. You can have balsamic vinegar and red wine vinegar and rice wine vinegar and white distilled vinegar. That I buy, white distilled vinegar, I buy in a big gallon thing. And apple cider vinegar. There are so many vinegar options, and they're so good. Malt vinegar, for that matter. And different applications use different things, and but all these, again, you start out with one or two. With the oils, maybe you just have one. I only have one bottle of olive oil. I have a olive oil, and then I have an extra virgin olive oil. Depending on what I'm using it for, sometimes they're interchangeable. And right or wrong, that's what happens. And I've got one type of vegetable oil and one type of canola, so all these things are you can buy them in bulk if you're going to use them quite often, or just buy a small bottle. Olive oil, some of these aren't like shelf stable, and olive oil you're not going to want for an entire year in your pantry if you don't use it very much. It'll go bad. And so that's the other thing you got to consider when you're spending the money. Am I actually going to use this before it goes bad? Because while they might get stored outside of a refrigerator or in a pantry or in a cupboard, are they going to be good 6 months from now? Because I don't know if I'm going to use this. I've got like different sauces, like hoisin sauce and oyster sauce, and those items go in the refrigerator for more of an Asian cuisine, depending on what I'm cooking. And those are ones, or a fish sauce that, okay, I put them in the refrigerator, but if I haven't made an Asian dish in 4 months, is it going to be as good? Do I need to spend a bunch of money on the best quote-unquote brand just because I'm not even going to use it all and it's going to go bad, I'm going to throw it away? I don't want to do that. I don't like wasting money, but that happens. Another thing, I've always got tortilla shells, always got it. flour tortilla shells, and corn tortilla. I've said before, I would really like making my own corn tortillas. I haven't been making my own flour tortillas. I do want to get into that, but I always have tortillas because I love a quesadilla. And so I've got tacos at the ready almost 100% of the time, because I'll get some frozen beef or some chicken, and I'll keep it in the freezer so that worst case scenario, we can have tacos tonight. And I just love them. And I love a quesadilla, and that'll be a snack for me late at night, which is not good for me, I know, but that's my favorite go-to snack. Pasta noodles are something else. We always keep a pasta noodle. I have made some pasta noodles from scratch. I have a half broken, which I think means it's actually broken, pasta, like a press thing. I bought a cheap one off Amazon, and I think that's a big part of the problem. I've tried making fresh pasta. It's great, but if I watch things online or on TV, a lot of them say, a lot of cooks and chefs, and I'm not one chef, but they prefer the dried pasta because of reasons I can't remember off the top of my head. It doesn't really matter what they prefer. That's what the dried pasta is, what I have in the pantry at all times, along with a jarred pasta sauce. Now, I much prefer to make a pasta sauce myself, but I always keep pasta noodles of multiple kinds, spaghetti noodles, rigatoni, all different, lasagna for the most part, but that's a little more involved, so that's not always in the pantry. And a jarred pasta sauce just to have something ready to go. I say that because I also always have cans of diced tomatoes, tomato sauce, and tomato paste always in my pantry as well. So if there is time, I will make a sauce, even if it's a very basic sauce where it's exactly that: tomato paste, diced tomatoes, maybe some tomato sauce from a can. I know they are crushed tomatoes. The San Marzano are the best. That's what I've been told. That's what sticks in my brain because everybody says that. But these are Aldi brand ones. Sometimes I'll buy the San Marzano or a bigger name or whatever. But I always want to have tomatoes at the ready. I always have a can of refried beans in there as well. I love refried beans with a taco or just as a side to whatever dish. Those are always in my pantry. And obviously you've got your peanut butter and honey and jellies and jams and stuff like that. I say obviously, like I said, there are people that listen from total different backgrounds and cultures than where I am. And if you're from a different place and you're thinking this just all sound or half of this sounds like craziness, well, I'm just being honest here. This is what I have. And sandwich bread, those kind of things, I don't know. But as far as cooking is concerned, I think having the ability or kind of having the items to be able to make a dessert or a bread or some kind of meal, whatever that might mean for you, I don't know any different and I'd love to know some different ones. And I would love to hear what other people keep so they always have a kind of a meal at the ready. But something with pasta, obviously then butter is always always have butter. That is always in the refrigerator, and heavy cream is another thing. But I say that because I can also look in there if I look in there and I've got the pasta noodles, I always have flour, I always have butter, I always have heavy cream or milk, whole milk, and it doesn't always have to be heavy cream. It could be whole milk. I'm just thinking out loud here, okay, I can make a pasta dish with like an Alfredo sauce. And I think I talked about this before, Alfredo sauce does not have the cream in it or whatever. I think that's right. But either way, I can make a bechamel. Now I'm thinking, somebody's yelling at me now because I can't remember the difference between an Alfredo sauce and a bechamel. See, these are the things as a home cook that you got to look up sometimes. I forget. But I've got all the ingredients because you need to make a roux to make a bechamel. You have butter, you have flour, and then you put milk or heavy cream in it, a little salt, maybe some white pepper, and nutmeg. Now I've got a bechamel. Again, you don't have to have the nutmeg. It's just, I can make a basic cream sauce. I can make noodles. So if I don't want to do like a ragu or a tomato-based sauce, I can do a cream sauce. And then if I've got mushrooms or something, then like with what I've made before, like a sausage and with a cream sauce, and it's got mushroom and everything. I've already got the pasta at home when I go grocery shopping for the week or whatever. I already have butter. I know I've got milk, always got butter and milk and flour. So I don't really have to worry about the base for anything. It's just any added ingredients like mushrooms or whatever herb. Although I typically always have parsley and cilantro are the two fresh herbs that I will try to always have on hand. Rosemary, things like rosemary and oregano and thyme are ones that if I know I'm making something specific, mint, depending on what I'm making, would be another one that I would probably buy for a specific dish. It wouldn't be something. I go into a grocery store and I have just general thoughts on what I'm going to make. And I know that parsley and cilantro are the two that, for me and for what I cook, are going to cover me for 90% of the dishes that I'm going to make. So I'm sure I'm forgetting something. It's been a long episode. I know I'm forgetting something, but I'll think of it another time. I don't know that all these things were anything groundbreaking. But again, if you're somebody that's just starting out with cooking or maybe just trying to just think of what I never can find anything to me. For me, it's tuna fish. That's something. I usually have a few cans of tuna fish. Why? For nights like a couple nights ago when I couldn't find anything to eat, and I'm just like, well, I'll put tuna in there. That's going to be my meal. I'll make a tuna cake. Eggs, obviously, in the refrigerator. We always have eggs. There are just so many options. And sometimes I want to get creative and make something like that pancetta rolled chicken breast stuffed with mushrooms and with the cauliflower puree. But there are many nights where just some eggs, because as expensive as eggs are now, that's still going to be the cheapest dish to make some eggs, do some poached eggs or just scrambled eggs. Always have onions, vegetables. I try to look at my shopping cart and what is fresh here and for the week. Again, you all know how well I do at that, but that's my goal is my fresh food outweighing my processed food, and it should be. Does it always? No. But that's the goal is to go that route. So, and again, when you get fresh, especially, I said pantry staples, but these are things that I buy every week. Always got onions and things like that. So peppers, jalapenos, different items, because they go with everything, and they're going to be good in anything. And if I've got onion every week at home, and maybe some peppers, then if I'm going to try to stay towards a cheaper meal, I've got onions, peppers, and some scrambled eggs. I can make an omelet, or with a little bit of cheese. Obviously, cheese is something that I eat a lot of and always have on hand. And another thing where you can get cheap, and then when you feel you can do it or whatever, you can get something a little more high quality, especially in the cheese realm. That's definitely an option. There are a lot of options for that. So I hope this helped you. Again, I know it wasn't anything groundbreaking, but I try to have everything at hand to make something sweet, so that if we get a craving for something sweet, I can make some cookies or whatever, a sweet quick bread of some kind. I also try to keep something in the pantry to just be able to make a meal of whatever, whether it's pasta, whether it's eggs, and with the eggs you can make a French toast and just all the different things. Just make hard-boiled eggs. That's a great snack, and in a pinch it makes a meal, So I would love for you to let me know what you keep in your pantry, what you keep in your refrigerator, things that you always purchase. If it runs out, I got to get more, right? That's what I'm talking about. If this is on the grocery list every week because we burn through it every single week. And a lot of times it's the kind of things I've talked about. Again, I'm sure I'm missing something. And but is what it is. That's what happens when you don't have a scripted podcast, I guess. Let me know what you've got. I love comment, love an email, thecookbetterpodcast@gmail.com. I appreciate you listening so much. Thank you, and I will talk to you next time.